What if there was a version of you that finally made it was built in the shadows, right? What if the version of you that finally makes it was built in a season where no one saw what you were doing? Would you be okay with that? Would you understand the impact of that? Would the success you acquire feel the same to you? I think this is an important question to reflect upon because it could have a huge impact on your journey. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Success in Doses. I am your host, Saley. I am so excited for you to be joining me today for the discussion we're going to have. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope that everybody's been listening and catching up on the episodes that have come out and that you are dropping feedback for me, you're commenting, you're liking, you're subscribing, because this is going to be one of the most important things you can do for me to make sure that this podcast continues to be discoverable and that more people are interested in what I have to share. Today's episode really touches on something that I think we all kind of have heard and known for a while, but somehow I think it's part of our nature as people to just continuously want recognition for the efforts that we put in and continuously want our successes, no matter how big or how small it is, for it to be acknowledged and for it to be recognized because of the effort that's gone into it. Right? But you don't need applauses to be impactful. And that's just true, right? And understanding that sometimes the most powerful work is really done in silence. The things that you are doing where there's nobody watching you and there's nobody to see you make a difference and you be impactful, those are the wins that usually last with us and motivate other wins, right? So what if there's a version? Follow me here real quick. Like, let's go on a field trip, right? Because once you finally get to that place of success where for a lot of people that listen, that place could be right now residency. Was your residency journey something that you lived out loud and lived out in front of everyone? Now that you are in residency, do you feel pressured that that journey also has to be on display? Or are you a candidate whose journey of residency was filled with uncertainty? It was a journey that you took in faith and you took with friends and family and mentors, but that journey was very quiet. You laid your journey and your strategy down brick by brick. There was not really a whole lot of noise around your journey, and you also secured a residency. And so is there a difference between the way in which the two of you should feel about your success? And the answer to that is a very personal one. It depends on you, and it depends on what you have done the work to identify as things you need for fulfillment. It's about the value that you've chosen to espouse to success and the journey and how you get to said success, right? There's a lot out there. So first of all, let's address the fact that we live in an incredibly noisy world. And the world we live in, unless what you're doing is on display for everyone to see, you're not doing anything. That's the first thing I want to address. So there's a certain level of acceptance in our society and at times expectation in our society that we are going to be very transparent. That's one of the words that seems to be kind of ruling the era and the season right now. We are going to be authentic and transparent in the steps that we are taking and the journey that we are on to be successful. For some people, nothing could be more frightening as an idea, right? We've talked about uncertainty. For some people, they're still working out their relationship with uncertainty and they don't really even feel confident yet to talk to the people that they love the most about the various things that they're thinking about experimenting with and the ways in which they think that they want to resurface, right? And so I think that being cognizant that at baseline, we are all living in an incredibly noisy world. And in that world where there's so much chaos, your desire for stability and your desire for calmness and your desire for silence as you try to figure out what work you need to do, what steps you need to take, what incremental moves you need to make can be very, 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 very challenged, right? It's referred to out there as the silent work, right? So the first concept I wanted to talk about is the silent work. And the silent work is this concept or this idea that it's the phase of your journey to where you are trying to go, your next level that is unseen. It is unsexy. It is not glamorous by any standard at all. It requires practice and patience and grace, right? So for example, I decided that I was going to invest in equipment for podcast recording. And that sounds really, really simple, right? Because why? There are a gazillion YouTube videos out there about what I need to get from a microphone to computer to the software to the lighting. Oh my God, don't get me started on the lighting. There are all this information out there about how I need to start. And I'm at it by myself, right? So I have to decide to buy the equipment so my husband can put it together for me. But there's a lot I'm going to be sharing on my YouTube video where I spent entire afternoons going from TJ Maxx to Marshall's to actual furniture stores and wanting to turn my spare bedroom into a whole studio, right? And then having to let go of that idea because I'm no interior designer. Like I'm no interior designer, right? And I remember it was like just this really simple question that my husband had asked at the time. And he was like, what is the point of launching the podcast? And I told him, I was like, let's leave. I think we were at Burlington looking at like things to mount and all that. I was like, let's leave. He's like, no, really answer the question, because I was thinking like he was just tired of walking around and wanted to leave. But that's not what it was. I think he could notice and see that I was getting really, really caught up on all the aesthetics and how it would all look. And I wasn't thinking about my target audience, which is my target audience deserves really good audio quality. They deserve good lighting, and I need a space that is quiet. And so I record like super early in the morning when everybody is asleep because it's the only still time in my house with the 2-year-old, right? But there's a lot of like work that I was doing that I wasn't posting about, that I wasn't talking about at all, because it was super important that I go through the waves of that. But some of you can relate to the silent work in the terms of all of the time that you're spending studying for NAPLEX is silent work, because until you actually take the NAPLEX and have an outcome, nobody really and truly understands and knows all of the work that went into that. Entrepreneurs know a lot about the silent work and how much has to go into it. Content creators, right? Posting for months before you even feel like your account is growing one bit. But having that commitment and that conviction that I know that the quality of content that I am putting out is worth putting out. And I know that the people that I'm looking for to find me, they're also looking for me. And so I'm not going to give up on putting the content together. I'm going to continue to work on that. I mean, that is the season that I have lived in and that I continue to live in to this day. So with us living in a space where everything has to be shared online or everything has to have visibility, otherwise you're not doing anything, like it can feel really, really hard to work in silence. Like it can feel really, really hard because you can feel like you are hurting your brand by not speaking up and talking about what you're doing, because people may just be like, oh, we haven't seen Sally on social media for like 3 months. Is everything okay? Right? I remember going through this like immediately after my mom passed away. I didn't necessarily post. I was present and I was just watching and looking at all of what's going on online, but I wasn't posting. And people DM'd me and they would ask, Is everything okay? Are you doing all right?" That felt good because it meant to me that I had done a good job curating a group of followers that have connected with me on a level that just transcends these tips and pearls that I put out on Instagram. But they noticed that I shared that I was going through things in life and they checked in on me, right? But it's lonely when you decide to work quietly for a long time because the praise is nowhere in sight. You have to be your own source of that. There's no one around to say, "Great job, you figured out how to set up the light." There's no one. You have to start relying on yourself to giving yourself those kudos and those clap it ups because nobody is going to give it, right? So we know that our brain, it wants reward, like it craves reward, right? But if we don't become accustomed to and comfortable with delayed gratification, we can then get into this thing where we're prematurely sharing and things are not quite ready and we're sharing prematurely. I don't want this need to work in silence to be confused with perfectionism and overworking on things and not letting go or getting stuck in paralysis analysis. It's not the same. I think that working in silence does something that perfectionism does not allow. Working in silence allows you to actually strategize, recalibrate, revisit, globally look at what you're doing in a sense that allows you to stay objective and grounded in facts of what's in front of you. It was a fact that I needed lighting. It was a fact that I needed a better microphone. It was a fact that I needed a space that I can isolate for my recording purposes. That was fact. But perfectionism was recording one episode 7 different times because I feel like I'm going for a certain vibe that's not there. And, again, having outside voices ask me, "Is your message any different?" And I'm like, "No, the message is the same, but there's a way I want to deliver it. If the message is the same, just put it out. Just put it out there and let your listeners tell you that they prefer X, Y, or Z." So that's why working in silence can be hard because it requires you to have the discipline to have this be a focus on you and what you're working on instead of more of you're working on things for the motivation of wanting praise. And in this day and age where virality is everything, this is a topic I needed to talk about to make sure like all of us that are here, like we understand that, yes, it's lonely, but the invisible seasons of you building and the invisible seasons of you developing, the invisible seasons of you just keeping your head down and powering through the various seasons and changes that are coming your way, they have a reason and they have a purpose. And I promise you that it makes the visible and the praise so much better. The second thing, I can't count. I don't know if it's second or third now, but the third thing or second thing that I'm going to talk about is discipline as a dose you take every single day. Discipline gets a really scary aura around it because a lot of people feel like the moment the conversation around discipline erupts, we are talking about sacrifice. We are talking about doing it at all costs. We are like people feel like in order to even become comfortable with discipline, there is something that they have to sacrifice and give up. What I can tell you has been true in my journey is I had to reframe discipline. I had to reframe it. Discipline had to go from being this huge concept to a very tiny one. I turned it into a dose for success. Small, repeatable, and intentional. Like discipline for me, I had to take it into bite sizes, right? It started with how do I learn to curate content? How do I learn to produce an episode? How do I learn to organize and structure the topic I'm going to talk about in a linear fashion so that the people listening or I don't lose them along the way, right? And once that formula for my approach was clear, then it became about reproducing it. It became about becoming so good at it that I no longer need to write it down. I would look at a title of what I want to talk about and go. And again, I credit the journalism skills for that. But I'm able to just look at a topic and go because I'm not talking to you about anything except my lived experiences and the things that I have seen other people do through working with them so that I can help you figure out what may or may not work for you based on what I've seen. But reframing success and turning it into small doses that you take every single day that are small and repeatable and they are intentional. This is very important. And to stay disciplined, it has to be about habit stacking. Like one habit has to be a building block for the next. And that is a building block for the next. And that builds the way for the next. And before you know it, you have built this almost error-proof process around starting, continuing, and finishing. I want to talk about time blocking for a second with respect to building discipline. Time blocking is this concept of saying, I'm going to come into work and between 8 and 9, I'm strictly working on email, even if operations is on fire. I'll be right there. But the order of my day is 1 to 2 hours blocked exclusively to work on certain tasks, then 4-hour block to work on certain tasks. Time blocking is one of the most effective disciplines, one of the most effective tools you can implement in your professional, even personal life to reinforce discipline in your routines, right? If this is alone time at home and there are no kids, no phones, nothing, it's just time with me by myself, you have to learn how to time block and be intentional about what happens during that time. Because something weird happened. They start to feel like these are my rituals. Every morning I go this way and then this way and then this way and then that way. And that leads me to being ready to go out and face the day. So now that we've had an opportunity to understand what working in silence means, why it feels hard to work in silence, understanding how discipline contributes immensely to your success during that time frame and window when you're working in silence. And then we talked about how that discipline leads to these daily rituals and these daily things that you do in small, repeatable, and in intentional ways. We then get into how do you know it's time to work out loud? After all of the time and energy spent, it's time to work out loud. Success for us in a lot of our spaces, it's really going to be defined by the awards and the recognitions, the promotion, the job offer, the recognitions at all levels, right? Departmentally or even nationally, these are all going to be things, right? But we know that the way success is going to show up and how you are going to tell that you've been successful in your strategic plan of silently working and then transitioning to working out loud, you're going to notice a difference in your confidence. You're going to notice a difference in the amount of freedom you feel. You're going to notice that you move with a lot more certainty around the project, around the job, than you were before when you just cared so much about visibility. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. You decided to take the time to learn and build and cultivate and figure out how small, repeatable things can help you become amazing. And now that you're ready to showcase those things, your confidence is one of the first things that's going to come out of the gate swinging. And you're going to feel like you have this weird sense of clarity about your mission that you've never had before. That's not accidental. That is truly by design. Because if you employ this, that is truly, truly what you stand to gain from it. And then you become free because when you put that work out there, you couldn't care less what people's opinions of it is, because especially for creativity projects, it can be a very sensitive and touchy thing to do all this work and put out a creative body of work. And there's nothing positive that you hear about it. It's all negative. It's being trashed. I cannot imagine how I would deal with such a thing. But I have had my work critique. I have a different attitude about that. I think that not everything is for everyone. And so my assessment is the people that I am putting this out for, the people that are giving me feedback to keep doing this, they want this. They're looking for this in no fancy way, in no sophisticated way. They just want to connect and have a conversation with somebody about what they can learn that can unlock a small piece of their journey to their professional success. And there's something else about being free. You become free to start expressing yourself in your highest level and the highest in the highest form of creative freedom that you've ever known, right? Because perfectionism is no longer an ambition or a pursuit, strictly about, I did this thing, I put my heart into this thing, now here it is. Enjoy it, don't enjoy it. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are either way. But you can see that this leading with discipline is driven from within. It's driven from within, right? Share your story. And the reason why I think that when you work in silence and then translate that into living out loud, it's important to share your story. We've talked a lot about how other people's stories have this really amazing power and ability to change and reframe the narratives that we allow to take hold in our own heads about our journeys, right? But I think that the sharing your story piece is the last part of an incredibly important journey to success, because you can be transparent with folks about all of the uncertainty that existed, all of the times you were unsure, the times you were scared, because working in silence is isolating and it's very lonely. So when you are able to get on the other side of that, there are people, you have to remember that there are people who are just entering their work in silence phase and would love to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel for them. And so my call to action for you today, for this microdose that I want to leave you with, is that the results may be delayed and the rewards are not denied. So my microdose for you in this episode and call to action, and what I want to see you implement and understand, is that the results may be delayed, but the rewards are not denied. So sure, I could have created this podcast 5 years ago. I don't think I have any explanation for you for why I didn't, but I can tell you that this podcast's existence today is exactly when it was supposed to happen. And the reward that I'm feeling and accomplishment that I am feeling in this moment is not diminished by any measure. Whatever metrics you're using, use it. I can tell you that I am glad that now is the time when the podcast is out and ready to be out in the world, because I am far more confident in talking about all of what I have experienced today than, say, 5 years ago. And so I want to ask you, what silent work are you committed to this week? We connect on some level on this podcast every Monday. Whether it's a full episode or a microdose, I want to connect with you every Monday and have this be something that sets the pace for how your week unrolls. So this week, I want you to tell me what silent work you are going to commit to this week. And then I want to invite you to share that with me on Instagram. If you decide to post about it, if you decide to just comment here, that handle is going to be Success and Doses Pod. I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are on silent work, or if you're one of those brave souls out there that works out loud from the beginning. I would love to hear from you, because perhaps there's some insight that you can share with us about what your process is and how we may learn to kind of adopt some of the gems that you have to drop for us on working out loud from the beginning. And that is all for this week's episode of Success and Doses. If what we discuss here resonates with you and you know someone else that may benefit from hearing today's episode, please do not hesitate to like, share, subscribe, and invite your friends to dial into this episode and the podcast. We are officially bingeable. So by the time this episode comes out, you'll be able to hear more than 3 episodes for sure and that you can enjoy. The takeaway message I have for you today from this episode is very simple. Working in silence has the immense ability to allow you to discover that you can absolutely do anything and that you can work in slow incremental steps to get to the place where you live out loud with more confidence and more freedom. Delayed gratification is nothing you should be afraid of. In fact, learning to become comfortable with delayed gratification can be a superpower that you use because it allows you to be very strategic and plan your moves and step forward and into the light with all of what you create and do and accomplish with so much more confidence. As always, please remember that success does not come in giant leaps. It happens one dose at a time. Have a wonderful week.